Good day everyone, especially to you watching this video right now. This video tackles about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. This video contains the major features and chemical events in photosynthesis and respiration, the light reaction and dark reaction. Second, the importance of chlorophyll and the other pigments. Third, the major features and sequence in the chemical events of cellular respiration. Lastly, to distinguish the major feature of glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and electron transport system.
We're here to talk about the major features and chemical events that occur during the photosynthesis. First, what is photosynthesis?
Photosynthesis is the production of glucose from carbon dioxide and water in the form of converted energy that came from the sunlight. This glucose can be converted into pyruvate, which releases adenosine triphosphate (ATP) by cellular respiration. Oxygen is also formed and released to the atmosphere. Major features and chemical events in photosynthesis and respiration.
The first stage. Chlorophyll traps the sunlight in the leaves. Chlorophyll is the reason why the plants are green, a chemical that traps sunlight to the chloroplast.
The second stage, own provision of plants for their own food takes up by converting the energy from the sun that forms higher molecules.
Stage 3, absorption of the roots to the nutrients to deliver it up to its leaf and would mix it with carbon dioxide, the CO2.
Fourth stage, plants release their waste, oxygen, which is necessary to all the living things.
Respiration. How do plants respirate?
Respiration is a biochemical process in which the cell of an organism obtain energy by combining oxygen and glucose, resulting in the release of carbon dioxide, water, and ATP, the currency of energy in cells.
While water is broken down to form oxygen during photosynthesis in cellular respiration, oxygen is combined with hydrogen to form water. While photosynthesis requires carbon dioxide and releases oxygen, cellular respiration requires oxygen and releases carbon dioxide. Plants respire all the time because their cells need energy to stay alive, but plants can only photosynthesize when they are in the light. The diagram summarizes what this means for the overall release of carbon dioxide or oxygen from plants. Remember that respiration uses oxygen and produces carbon dioxide. The light-dependent reactions use light energy to make two molecules needed for the next stage of photosynthesis, the energy storage molecule ATP and the reduced electron carrier NADPH. In plants, the reactions take place in the thylakoid membranes of the organelles called chloroplasts. Then as the whole process occurs, dark reaction is the provision of oxygen to the atmosphere.
The importance of chlorophyll for photosynthesis is that it captures light energy from the sun to produce glucose via a chemical reaction. Chlorophyll specifically absorbs light from red and blue parts of the light spectrum and reflects green light. This is the reason that plants appear green to us.
The use of chlorophyll for photosynthesis occurs in the light portion of the reaction. Photosynthesis has one part which occurs during daylight and another which occurs at night. The chlorophyll converts the light energy into chemical energy by forming adenosine triphosphate or ATP, which is similar to the structure of DNA. The ATP is used as part of the reaction that occurs in the dark as energy source. Photosynthesis can be thought of as containing a charging phase and a release phase.
For other plant pigment of chlorophyll, first, chlorophyll A, light to medium green, main photosynthetic pigment. Second, chlorophyll B, blue-green, accessory pigment.
Third, carotene orange, accessory pigment. And last, xanthophyll yellow, accessory pigment.
Cellular respiration is a process of oxidizing food molecules like glucose to carbon dioxide and water. It is also the process that releases energy by breaking down food molecules in the presence of oxygen. The energy release is trapped in the form of ATP for use by all the energy-consuming activities of the cell. It has chemical equation of glucose plus oxygen will yield to carbon dioxide plus water. Cellular respiration happens in mitochondria. Cellular respiration has 3 stages, which is the glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport.
Glycolysis. Glycolysis is the first step in the breakdown of glucose to extract energy for cellular metabolism. Glycolysis consists of an energy-requiring phase followed by an energy-releasing phase. In organisms that perform cellular respiration, glycolysis is the first stage of this process. However, glycolysis doesn't require oxygen in many anaerobic organisms. Organisms that do not use oxygen also have this pathway. Glycolysis takes place in the cytosol of a cell, and it can be broken down into two main phases. Energy requiring phase. In this phase, the starting molecule of glucose gets rearranged, and two phosphate groups are attached to it. The phosphate groups make the modified sugar now called fructose 1 and 6, bisphosphate and stable, allowing it to split in the half and form two phosphate, bearing 3 carbon sugars. Because the phosphates used in these steps came from ATP, 2 ATP molecules get used up. And next, energy releasing phase. In this phase, each 3 carbon sugar is converted into another 3 carbon molecule, pyruvate, through a series of reactions. In these two reactions, 2 ATP molecules and 1 molecule are made. Because this phase takes place twice, once for each of the 3 carbon sugars, it makes 4, and 2 NADH overall. Key points of glycolysis. Glycolysis is present in nearly all living organisms. Glucose is the source of all energy used by cells. Overall, glycolysis produces 2 pyruvate molecules, a net gain of 2 ATP molecules and 2 NADH molecules. The Krebs cycle occurs in the matrix of mitochondria. It occurs only in aerobic conditions, that is, only when oxygen is present. Its main function is to oxidize acetyl-CoA generated from glycolysis. In the Krebs cycle, acetyl-CoA and acetylacetate undergo a condensation reaction to form a 6-carbon compound through a series of decarboxylation and dehydrogenation reactions. Intermediate 5- carbon and 4- carbon compounds are formed with the release of carbon dioxide. 1 ATP molecule is generated per turn of the Krebs cycle by substrate level phosphorylation. Hence, 2 ATP molecules are formed per molecule of glucose. As shown from this diagram, electron flow from NADH to O2 is facilitated by several intermediate electron carriers. For example, electrons from a reduced donor such as malate to an oxidized donor such as OAA, the electrons move from carrier to carrier down a favorable energy gradient to the final electron acceptor, O2. The favorable energy gradient is due to the fact that electrons move towards components with a more positive reduction potential and thus a higher affinity for oxygen. As the electron flow occurs, protons are flowing across the inner membrane into the intermembrane space. Most of the chemical energy is transferred during the redox reactions where the electron carriers NAD and FAD are reduced to form coenzymes NADH and FADH2 respectively. The Krebs cycle is also cyclic as the starting product, oxaloacetate, is regenerated.
And next, the electron transport chain.
The function of the electron transport chain is to produce a transmembrane proton. Electrochemical gradient as a result of redox reactions. If protons flow back through the membrane, they enable mechanical work, such as rotating bacterial flagella. ATP synthase, an enzyme highly conserved among all domains of life, convert this mechanical work into chemical energy by producing ATP, which powers most cellular reactions. A small amount of ATP is available from substrate level phosphorylation. For example, in glycolysis, in most organisms, the majority of ATP is generated in electron transport chains, while only some obtain ATP by fermentation.
Or protein complex in the inner mitochondrial membrane form electron transport chain. This complex exists in the ascending order of energy. Here the electron carriers come along to drop off all their electron and proton cargo that pick up during the glycolysis and citric acid cycle stages. NADH plus H plus and FADH2 become oxidized, donating electrons to the first and second protein complex respectively. These complex proteins now become electron carriers themselves and are now reduced. They became oxidized as they pass these electrons down, the electron transport chain as the electrons are moving down the stairs. The protons donated from NADH plus H and FADH2 also are put to good use. They are pumped to the other side of the inner mitochondrial membrane. Through the protein complex, they are moved by active transport from the mitochondrial matrix to the space between the inner membrane and outer membrane of the mitochondria. They do use to this by using the energy derived from the electrons that flow down electron transport chain.
To sum it all, photosynthesis and cellular respiration is such that the product of one system are the reactants of the other. Photosynthesis involves the use of energy from sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to produce glucose and oxygen. And the cellular respiration uses glucose and oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and water. To emphasize this point even more, the equation for photosynthesis is the opposite of cellular respiration. Humans, animals, and plants depend on the cycle of cellular respiration and photosynthesis for survival. The oxygen produced by plants during photosynthesis is what humans and animals inhale for the blood to transport the cell for respiration. The carbon dioxide produced during respiration is released from the body and absorbed by plants to help provide the energy they need for growth and development. This is the never-ending cycle that sustains life on Earth. The process of photosynthesis is used by plants and other photosynthetic organisms to produce energy, whereas the process of cellular respiration breaks down the energy for use. So, the photosynthesis and cellular respiration are important parts of the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle is the pathways through which carbon is recycled in the biosphere, while cellular respiration releases carbon dioxide into the environment. Photosynthesis pulls carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. The exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen during photosynthesis and cellular respiration worldwide helps to keep atmospheric oxygen and carbon dioxide at stable levels. That's all for the video. Thank you for watching. We hope you've learned something about photosynthesis and cellular respiration.